The JJ McCarthy injury is unfortunate, but how can the Minnesota Vikings maximize the next year until his return? We're exploring that and more today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Joe, happy National It's Cool to Root for Matthew Judon Day to you. You're on the show.
You're a big fan, man. You've been a fan for a while.
I love Matthew Judon.
Yeah.
Grand Valley State, 5th round pick. Him and Zadarius Smith kind of do the day 3 Baltimore Ravens development plan, turn into really good players. The thing I'll miss most about Matthew Judon being a member of the New England Patriots is all of the unsuccessful recruitment tweets that come out every year in February and March.
So good. They're so good, man. I will
he
miss
legit went 0 for 100. I thought.
Yeah, he tried hard.
To come to New England.
He tried so hard. You know, the funny thing, you brought up the Ravens iteration of Judon and Smith, and like the narrative coming out of that was that Baltimore just knew how to like maximize these edge rushers, and they're like not going to be very good anywhere else. Wow.
Turns out these guys just need a little time in TLC, and
right.
You could play anywhere.
Congrats to the Ravens for their ability to churn edge rushers. Like that's
right.
Probably the real story, but it's not like those guys were only good because they played for the Ravens. Those guys have been heck of a player. You know,
Darius had some monster years, and
still a good player.
Yeah,
still is good.
So we'll talk a little bit more about Matthew Judon later, but we want to shift gears to Minnesota with the JJ McCarthy news. Full repair of his meniscus that was announced yesterday, which ends his rookie season before it ever begins. This is the first time a first-round quarterback, at least in the Super Bowl era, I think.
67, yeah.
67, yeah. The first-round quarterback to lose his full rookie season to injury in the Super Bowl era after a really promising debut in the preseason debut that he had with Minnesota. You're obviously bummed out for Minnesota fans. You're bummed out for JJ McCarthy. But this season still has to happen for Minnesota, and I think that's kind of where we'll focus our conversation from a team-building perspective with the Vikings.
Yeah, I'll say this. The history of heartbreak for the Minnesota Vikings,
it's up there.
I think it's unrivaled in the NFL. Like, they've lost 4 Super Bowls. They've not maximized on special rosters. They've had Teddy Bridgewater. They've had Kirk Cousins last year. They had the Sam Bradford deal. I mean, and that wound up working out, right, with Case Keenum coming in and going to the NFC Championship game. But, like, their history of heartbreak is, I think, unrivaled in the National Football League. Like, the contest is over. The Vikings win. But like you said, there's still a 2024 season to play, and it still matters. And so I'm excited to talk through that with you here today in terms of how they can maximize it, and then, of course, the coming off season as well. Another interesting nugget here, you mentioned this is going to be the first-round quarterback to miss their entire rookie season due to injury. That's a first-round pick. There's been 4 first-round quarterbacks this century who did not play in a regular season game, and that will include JJ McCarthy. The other 3, Carson Palmer, Jordan Love, and Jason Campbell. Now, obviously, Palmer and Love feel like those are great stories to tell. Campbell, not so much. But like, even if you lump in a guy like Patrick Mahomes, I don't think Patrick Mahomes' career is what it is because he played the 1 week 17 game at the end of the season, right? Like, I think there's plenty of positives to glean. And let me lead by saying this, and this is going to be a little bit harsh. And Kyle, I've said this to you a bunch of times. Injuries suck. but ultimately nobody cares, right? Like Minnesota Vikings fans care. The Vikings got something to figure out, but I promise you,
you don't get an extra 10 points on the scoreboard to start the game because you lost your quarterback.
You don't get extra points. Yeah, the NFL, I mean, the rest of the NFL, figure it out. Figure it out. So that's the place that they're in. And I think for Minnesota, you acknowledge that it sucks, but then you just kind of have to embrace what it is. And I think one of their key objectives this season has to be the exposures that McCarthy will get that aren't game reps, whether that's getting comfortable with the full routine of a schedule, installation of game plans, film study habits, like all of that is still really good. And I think you embrace the fact that he gets to do all that and not have to play.
Right. You're able to collect a lot of mental reps. And you'll see a lot, and you'll be able to relate to a lot with the guy who is presumably going to carry this job this season, who was also a top half of the first round pick at quarterback, who has already endured all of the struggles and pressure that McCarthy now is going to be backburnered and is going to get burdened back on this player in Sam Darnold. And I think when we considered that situation, when we graded that situation, we were very complimentary of, hey, having a guy in the room who's been in the exact shoes that JJ McCarthy is going to be in as a rookie pick and a presumed franchise quarterback and savior for a franchise, that experience is valuable. And now getting to see not just how Sam was molded by those pressures, but how it's changed how Sam operates now, I think can, as the starter, can be valuable insight and lessons for JJ McCarthy to take as well.
Yeah. And seeing Sam get coached through it all.
Yeah.
That's going to be really, really helpful for JJ. Not to forget, JJ McCarthy's young, man. I mean, he turns 22 in January. So he's going to miss his age 21 season. But a lot of guys don't even get drafted until they're 22. And so he'll have at least the exposure of an NFL season under his belt before he's, by all you would assume the guy they anticipate to be the starter in 2025, which will be his age 22 season. So yeah, it's a lost year on the field, but I think the youth and the opportunity to embrace what he does get exposed to this year is a critical factor in how Minnesota is going to be able to maximize this season. Despite maybe there's results won't be there. There's still a lot that you can accomplish this year.
Well, and you've talked about developing player being surrounded by developing talent, and Minnesota has, I think, less of that.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably a way to walk the line between knowing what you want your identity to be with JJ McCarthy and then also giving Sam Darnold the reps and the things that he's most comfortable with. Like, I think you can do both of those things to give yourself the best chance to win games this year, while also like evaluating the rest of the talent as it fits within. It's not like I'll use the example of my own team just because the dynamics of the two quarterbacks are so different. Like Mike White and Tua Tagovailoa, like if Mike White had to play for an extended period of time, you couldn't do a lot of the fundamental things that you want the offense to look like because the skills are so dramatically different. Tua's very quick release, quick twitch, get the ball out quick decision making. Mike White's like long release. You saw him try and just catch and shoot a perimeter throw, and it was 3 yards backwards that Jalen Wright had to kind of dribble and catch, and it was a rush attempt because he couldn't put the ball out in front of him.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one example of that. So I think the good news is you think about the athletic ability of Sam Darnold, the athletic ability of JJ McCarthy. I think maybe the execution of it gets better, but you could still run the bones and structure of the offense that you want to be and the identity that you want it to be, because there's enough parallels in the skill sets of the players too for Minnesota this year.
All right. So there's a lot they can accomplish this year. In addition to DJ Hawkinson, he'll be, fully healthy by the time McCarthy reinserts himself into the lineup. But I think there's a lot to get into with their opportunities in the 2025 offseason, which some interesting nuggets that we're going to get into here on the other side of it. Folks, be sure to stick with us. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know it makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire. That'll get you matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn.
Floor is yours.
All right. So I want to set the stage here for what Minnesota's facing in this 2025 offseason. And so, first of all, let's acknowledge that cap space, we don't know exactly what it's going to be. However, I can tell you that Minnesota is going to comfortably be in the top 10 of available cap space in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And that's obviously a good place to be. And their notable expiring contracts, they have a lot because every team does right now. It's 90-man rosters. They're notable players, in my opinion. Harrison Smith and Cam Bynum at safety, Byron Murphy at corner, Harrison Phillips at defensive tackle, and Aaron Jones at running back. I think that's your notable list of expiring contracts and some guys that you're probably not overly concerned about there. Now, your draft situation is fascinating. The Vikings have parted with a lot of their 2025 draft capital, but they do have their first-round pick. They have 2 fifth-round picks, and they're expected to get a third-round compensatory pick for Kirk Cousins. We're going to be talking a lot about the Vikings as a trade-back team to be able to recoup a lot of that draft capital. And so when I look at the trajectory of this roster, the resources they have, the expiring contracts, and the draft capital that they're going to have, this is what I think they have to figure out next offseason. You got to figure out your safety tandem. You know, Cam Bynum, probably going to extend him, but you also have Harrison Smith as an expiring contract. He's an aging player. Who knows what's going to happen with Lewis Seen? Probably nothing, right? Because I don't think you can count on anything there. I think you got to figure out your wide receiver 3. Maybe that's Jalen Naylor. We'll find out this year, but you'll get more acquainted with your roster and position yourself to be able to add something there or not. I think you got to get TJ Hawkinson fully healthy, which should happen. You know, it's only a matter of time this year. I think you got to figure out your guards. Right now, we're anticipating Ed Ingram and Blake Brendel. I know Ingram took a step. We want to see what he truly is in year 3. And then maybe you have an opportunity to upgrade that other spot and then figure out your running back, right? So like Aaron Jones, probably a 1-year situation. But that's not a crazy list, man. We're talking about a safety, a third receiver, a guard, and a running back.
It's a lot of cheap
and you got a lot of cap space, man.
It's a lot of cheap positions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you want to upgrade some spots, I'm sure, but like I think that they're positioned well to maximize their opportunity so that when JJ McCarthy is the starting quarterback in 2025, that this is going to be a rock solid roster that he's going to be able to step into.
Yeah. And they'll need it because that division's looking like it's going to be increasingly more competitive when you consider young Green Bay, young Detroit, Chicago, been very aggressive, but a lot of young nucleus pieces in Ryan Poles and their rebuild. So all of these teams are kind of building at the same time, right? And I think that's what makes the injury for JJ such a gut punch this year because the division is a little bit of an unknown. Obviously, Detroit's started theirs first, so that they feel a little bit more out in front. And Green Bay had the big, strong finish last year. But if they're able to get everything to click into place and add the right pieces and push the right buttons, you know, they have every reason to believe they should be competitive within that division as everybody is for the foreseeable future.
You think about head coaches and what they learn through experience. I mean, Kevin O'Connell, brother, could he have had a more adventurous start to his tenure as a head coach with the dynamics of year 1 and being able to pull out every game somehow?
Purple cockroaches.
Insane. Then last year you played 105 different starting quarterbacks. You're without your best players all the time. You know, Jefferson and that whole situation, and Darisaw had some injuries last year as well. And now you stay committed to this plan, which we've complimented the Vikings on routinely on this podcast.
Yeah.
And here it is, brother. And now that friggin' first-round quarterback is going to miss the rookie season.
And I would also say this. I think you don't plan on it happening this way, but I think this is why it is so meaningful and important that Minnesota did stay authentic to
100%
their rebuild plan, because they very easily could have done what the Giants did. Look at the difference in the tone of the New York Giants and the Minnesota Vikings right now as two teams that made the playoffs in 2022 as teams with a first-year head coach in their regime, right? Minnesota won all the games. They lost to New York in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And New York said, let's trade a third-round pick for Darren Waller and spend a bunch of money on this, that, and the other thing, and we'll have Saquon on the franchise tag, and we're going to be out of character, aggressive going into year 2. And Minnesota said, we're going to stand back. We're going to let the process play out. We're going to try to have a more long-term view and scope of what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish. And now coming into year 3, both teams regressed in the win-loss perspective, and Brian Daboll is coaching for his job, and Joe Schoen is GMing for his job. And I think everybody understands in Minnesota, this is a long-term process, and now you've made an investment in a quarterback, and that quarterback's out for the year. Imagine if the Giants had traded for Drake May, and then Drake May, heaven forbid, got hurt, and the same thing happened in New York. What would New York look like right now? And it's because they would have brought it on themselves with how they chose to conduct themselves after the first season, where I think Minnesota has had good process in this team building, and I think there's an understanding because of that. And what they do this year, I hope they do win a bunch of games because it would be a reward for good process. I don't know that that's going to happen. I feel like they have some really good things working for them. How much faith I have in Sam Darnold is ultimately going to determine how optimistic I am about that team.
Right. That's the part of the conversation that is tough to get to. It's okay. Now the reality is Sam Darnold's your starting quarterback.
Right.
And there's not a whole lot of encouraging play that you can point to throughout his career that gets you excited about that. Maybe a few starts in Carolina wound up being okay. But it's going to be tough. But I feel like Kevin O'Connell's had so much on his plate in terms of prepping quarterbacks to play. I mean, he's probably more appealing than some of the guys they were playing with last year outside of Kirk.
Yeah, like Jaron Hall and I like Jaron Hall as a draft prospect, but he went rich.
Dobbs and I mean, so
can I read you a few numbers?
Sure.
5.24, 5.5, 4.16, 4.35, 7.13, and 4.85.
It's got to be yards per attempt from somebody.
Adjusted net yards per attempt for Sam Darnold in every year of his career. One season above 5.5. More seasons under 5.
What's the context? The Jets and Adam Gase.
I get
Matt
it.
Rule's Panthers. And being the backup for the 49ers last year, that's been his career.
I get it. But at the same time, if it was going to happen.
Well, this is definitely now or never, right? And that's the thing about these first-round quarterbacks. Boy, oh boy, do they get chances.
Right.
They get chances. And so this is like, it's now or never for Sam Darnold. And not that the Vikings have the opportunity, like it's a 1-year deal. It's not like they're going to do something magical with Sam Darnold and flip him for a pick or something like that. But I think there's a lot of value in the development of this overall team and Sam Darnold being able to showcase himself at a reasonable level this season.
Yeah.
How do you calibrate those expectations on, brother? I have no idea.
We do have an idea on.
Yeah, Matt Judon.
How long JOK is going to be in Cleveland and Matt Judon, where he's going to play his football this year.
Let's talk about that on the other side of it. Stay with us. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer and fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
All right.
Did you get this wee woo? I think this is a good way for us to start the conversation. It's from
skip right to Atlanta and Chris Lindstrom.
Yeah, we got to, right? Jeremy Fowler reporting that the Falcons are restructuring Chris Lindstrom's contract, moving part of his $12.5 million base salary into a signing bonus. And so that's going to probably give them their opportunity to onboard and take care of Judon. But
the Falcons have announced that they've agreed to terms pending physical and acquiring
Yeah.
Matthew Judon. That came an hour ago. So that deal is happening. Maybe new contract there. It sounds like there's for all of the contrast that we just got done throwing on the Jets for Hassan Reddick. It sounds like the Falcons may be acquiring an edge rusher without a new contract in hand.
Right.
And eventually giving him one. Which
And
I think it would make the Jets situation even funnier if Atlanta does it, pulls it off, and figures it out.
I'm optimistic that they will, and we don't know that they don't
Right.
have that deal in place. I think the fact that they're doing the Lindstrom deal suggests that they're trending somewhere.
I think they're trending towards spending some money somewhere else. They lost a safety for the season against Miami in the preseason.
So just they're going to go from
Simmons came and had lunch with or had dinner with AJ Terrell and Grady Jarrett last night or something like that.
And that was the big narrative with Atlanta. Is like, I kind of like what you're doing. Do you have the horses on defense? Do you have the pass rush? Do you have the secondary? Well, it's a good thing you can make roster moves all year long.
There's no deadline. There's no deadline. The only deadline is when your season's over until March of the following year. And even then you can agree in principle to trades.
So you are a big enthusiast of Matthew Judon, who turns 32 today. 32. Holy crap. Literally today. So happy birthday, Matthew Judon. What do you think about his skill set, his fit in this Jimmy Lake defense? I know that they just lost Braylon Thrice. And I think we assume a lot of like whatever we thought we saw from Jimmy Lake at Washington and whatever we've seen from Raheem Morris is kind of what this defense is going to be.
So
structurally,
that edge group with Jimmy Lake was a pretty diverse group. I expect this to be a diverse group. You consider who they have on the edge. I think this is the most important thing. It's Arnold Ebiketie, Lorenzo Carter, D'Angelo Malone, James Smith-Williams, Bradley and Nye. A lot of not big guys, right? I think Judon brings a level of physicality that the group didn't have. If you wanted to put Zach Harrison in that conversation because he's kind of a 5 techie type player, like I think that's a different role than what we're talking about here with Matthew Judon. So for me, Judon bringing that physical element who can play over top of tight ends. He can rush off the weak side. Like he can win with speed and power. He can win with technique. He can win with secondary moves. It all, and then putting it in the mix of Raheem Morris with a front that's going to manipulate protection rules and try to find matchups and turn guys loose. All of that for me, this is the player that I think you were missing to look at it and say, okay, if you want to have like a de facto pass rusher that's going to be the guy that you move around to try to attack certain protections and protection rules of players or opposing teams based on where they put the back, how they turn to the center. Do they mic identify or do they move their mic points around to kind of change where the offensive line is floating for their 4-man slide protections and 6-man protections? Like they didn't have that guy that's like, yeah, we want to do these rules structurally to force them to do this and then have a guy that's going to win on one-on-one. They have that now. And that for me is the massive win for Atlanta with what they're doing with Matthew Judon.
Judon been a very healthy player up until last year. He got injured in week 4. So he's had plenty of time to come back, and he's been a high volume snap guy his whole career. 70-80% snap guy. So this is a nice infusion into this lineup, and you go ahead and get yourself Justin Simmons. I think we're going to be talking about the clear favorite in the NFC South, in my opinion.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think so too, because they have a lot of elite physical talent because they were drafted in a stratosphere that consistently allowed them Bijan Drake, Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
Veteran quarterback. Very stable offensive line.
Yeah, and we really don't have proof of concept with Zach Robinson, but I just, based on his tree and what Kirk Cousins has done throughout his career, do you have any doubt with like
the floor will be enough?
Yeah. Right.
It's just how far can it carry you late?
Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, 3-year extension with the Cleveland Browns, worth up to $39 million, $25 million guaranteed. If it's true 13 million APY, that makes him the 6th highest paid linebacker in the league, just behind Patrick Queen of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
What was the guarantees?
25 million.
That's the 4th highest for a linebacker contract.
Quantity or percentage?
Total guaranteed is so Roquan Smith got 45 million guaranteed. Tremaine Edmonds got 41.8. Fred Warner got 27.5, and then it was Bobby Okereke at 21.8 was the next highest in total guarantees on the contract.
We like JOK. Yeah, dude, like the entire arc here is fascinating with like the player he was at Notre Dame and feeling really good about
he's a first round guy until he wasn't for no reason whatsoever.
He goes 52 overall, right?
Yeah.
Like
because he's small.
And then it's like, okay, well, I mean, I think a lot of teams had good foresight with where linebackers were trending, and I think the Browns are one of those teams. And I think they fell into a great player here, and his ability as a matchup player to work in space and like not only be able to win a man coverage, but pursue and play fast. Like I think the easiest thing that an offense can do is expose deficiency on the second level of a defense. So like we talk about linebackers maybe not being like a premium position, but at the same time, it's the easiest position I think for offenses to manipulate if there's a deficiency there. And so Owusu-Koramoah
have the most amount of space to cover. Yeah,
dude. Like I think it's so important. So JOK, very much your modern linebacker. And I feel like this is an appropriate contract for a good young player. He turns 25 in November. He's going to get another big deal if he continues it up.
Yeah, because I think that's the win for him is a 3-year extension with 2 years.
That's what teams kind of want is 3 years, right? Or the players want this 3-year deals.
Yeah, especially when they're young. You might take the longer one if you're 28.
Sure.
29. Oh, you want to give me a 5-year deal with 3 years of a guaranteed? Okay. But for JOK, man, yeah, it's been really cool to see him come into the league, be the player that you thought he would, because there's those kinds of players every year that you evaluate. And it's like, I think he can be this.
Mm-hmm.
I think he can be a really good weapon, overhang, apex defender, linebacker, in coverage, who has pass rush value. But sometimes those players that are a little positionally ambiguous, they don't happen, right? They don't. Isaiah Simmons, not afforded the opportunity to be a versatile player because he never settled into a spot. So for JOK to be a win in that dynamic of player evaluation is really cool, and it's neat to see him get rewarded with a nice contract.
We are fans of JOK on this podcast.
And we hope you are fans of our commentary and come back and see us again tomorrow. I'm Kyle Krabs. He's Joe Marino. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Make it a great rest of your day. We are out of here.